Welcome back. Last epi, we went from workout myths to steroids and childhood baggage. Israetel's basically like, stop believing you need perfect hours. You need systems, balance, and reality. And somehow we ended up discussing how bullying rewires your whole adult brain. Okay, but the opening, they're lying about workout hours, is so clickbait. I keep hearing train 2.5 hours a day like it's a religion. Hours are a terrible proxy for stimulus, recovery, and consistency. He basically said the marginal gains from extra time are small unless you're already nailing basics. Meanwhile, people think, if I just do cardio harder, math solves itself. Yeah, the donut to mile conversion, chef's kiss, makes it insane. But the key idea was diet's bigger effect, right? Like 80-20 as a heuristic. I love that he doesn't pretend exercise is useless, just that it can't rescue a bad diet. Constrained energy hypothesis. Your body fatigue adjusts, and you don't sustain the doubled activity. So the plan becomes, be exhausted forever, then fail, then blame yourself. Diet is controllable. Exercise calories live in fantasy land for most people. And then he hits this maintenance myth. People lose weight and go, great, forever clean eating now. That diet like a monk, then punish yourself for dessert forever, is wild. The cheeseburger sin brain is so dichotomous, good or bad person. His point, small junk can reduce diet fatigue and help adherence without wrecking progress. Honestly, the biggest problem is people treat one off-plan meal like character assassination. Wait, he also said calorie labels don't massively spike eating disorders globally, at the margins. That surprised me. I expected calories on menus will ruin everyone panic. He basically argues genetic risk plus specific social, cultural, ridicule contexts drive the severe cases. So it's not calories doing evil, it's predisposition plus environment doing the damage. Then the tangent, muscle dysmorphia, especially men, was a whole moment. Like the I'm not jacked feeling even when you are objectively jacked. That comparator population in your head, Gold's Gym in fantasy form. What I liked was how he distinguishes underestimation as common, but overestimation depends on the person. He connects it to neurotic traits. People who feel unsafe stay dissatisfied after gains. Versus the less neurotic, 1 week of lifting and they're like, should I go pro? That's hilarious and terrifying, confidence as a side effect of anxiety management. And he brought environment up too. University gym versus grandma's old people home. If you're surrounded by absolute units, you'll feel average no matter what. If you're around non-fitness folks, your normal suddenly looks heroic. That's the whole body image trap. Your mind isn't measuring you, it's measuring your circle. Okay, but then steroids came in like a freight train. They're great. Then kidding instantly. The "my boy got lucky" line about testicular shrinkage was so dry. But he was detailed about the trade-offs. Cardiovascular risk, cancer risk later, psychological side effects. And libido is not one size fits all. Some people get hungry, others get erection issues. I also didn't expect the fluid intelligence might drop angle to be mentioned so plainly. Like, you might get dumber. That's not exactly the marketing brochure. Then he goes full honesty about rage fantasies and aggression. No sugarcoating. Honor culture explained through testosterone-like brain effects. Okay, that's unsettling. The scary part is he frames it as increased threat perception and catastrophizing daily interactions. And the moral wasn't never lift, it was understand the whole cost function. Which ties back to the deeper theme, self-awareness beats blind programming. The childhood bullying story was intense, powerlessness switching on something primal. He described how being confronted made him automatically rank himself beneath others. And then fantasies of revenge just to restore honor, like Columbine logic, but explained psychologically. The way he said it, not ethical, jail, wrong in every way, kept it grounded. Then the big idea, we tell heroic narratives, but we're often dragged by wiring. Trauma becomes compulsion. Motivation becomes a story you tell after the fact. My favorite analogy? Childhood as cheap hardback books, adulthood as trying to add magazine facts on top. Basically, harder to change adult beliefs because there's already too much evidence stacked. So you need repetitions and new first-party evidence, not just vibes. And that links to fitness too. Progress evidence changes identity. He even brought subjective progress, staying in the bike shop late because you felt like you were going somewhere. That Harvard work diary thing, best days correlate with felt progress, not objective perfection. So the real lesson, stop demanding certainty, build feedback loops you can trust. And he ended with body dysmorphia, relating to your body better, soaking in sun, I'm the hot girl now energy. Not in a shallow way, more like reclaiming your perception from constant critique. All right, we said enough. This series was basically systems over obsession plus a side of human psychology. Thanks for hanging through episode 1 and 2, and keep chasing evidence, not fantasies. Welcome back. This final episode wraps myths about workout hours and weight loss. Then we go hard on body image, dysmorphia, and why progress beats perfection. The muscle-building expert line already sounds like clickbait, bro. But the dude was basically like, your brain is lying to you about inputs. I love the mental shift from, I need more hours to, I need the right system. Like, stop performing gym cosplay for 8 hours a day. And he called out how calorie label stuff barely changes eating disorders globally. I mean, people want one villain, yet the real villains are genetics and social shame. That's something you bring into the table. I was dying at that phrase. The anorexia part being mostly females of reproductive age, he made it sound clinical, not moral. And then he drops muscle dysmorphia, saying it's rampant among young men. He said like 87% of men aged 15 to 32 experiencing it. My brain went, wait, what? Because the definition is wild. You can be jacked, still feel not jacked at all. That's the gym version of my bank account is zero, even when it's not. He even gave the comparator population thing like your head invents an imaginary Gold's Gym. And sometimes gym culture brains you into underestimating yourself on bad days, right? But he also said it can flip. Some people overestimate, it depends on the person. Honestly, that nuance matters because social media only rewards certainty. Then he pivoted to genetics again, how some people are neurotic by wiring, not by upbringing. He's like, if you're neurotic, getting jacked doesn't prove you're good enough. Instead, your brain goes, it could get worse tomorrow. Classic doom calculus. But if you're less neurotic, 1 week lifting and suddenly you're like, should I go pro? That overconfident versus always unsafe contrast is so real, it hurts. The best part was his circle example. Neuroscientist friends think they're not jacked at all. Because their comparator population is like the bank, not the bodybuilding stage. That's the whole environment changes your perception thesis. Super underrated. Then we jump to weight loss, and he destroys the perfect or failure religion. He explained the diet fatigue and the sin narrative. One kebab becomes a morality collapse. Your body is like, relax, I just got carbs for recovery. And the key myth, people treat losing weight like maintenance, which is insane. He said doctors answer yep to maintenance like it's an appendix question. The forever diet thing, no tiramisu ever again, yeah, that's doomed advice. Also, he had that spouse-styled rage, what do you mean, yep? The practical rhythm was spicy. Diet hard, then maintenance for about 2 months per 3. Because psychologically and physiologically, fatigue comes down. Then you can diet again. I respect that he didn't pretend it's easy forever, but it's doable in cycles. He also tackled diet versus exercise using this constrained energy idea. Ponzer's paradox sounded fancy, but the point was simple. People compensate when they exercise more. The body adjusts planned activity and non-exercise movement so your deficit doesn't stay clean. And then your brain goes, great, now I can eat 2 donuts and still feel productive. That donut math, run 3 miles after eating it? Nobody does that in real life. He made it sound like exercise helps a bit, but diet gives you the big calorie sink changes. He also said exercise doesn't reliably increase hunger for most people, which is weirdly comforting. But yes, the I deserve it effect still exists, and he called that out too. The 600 calories is a drop in the bucket point was brutal but accurate. A pound fat is 3,500 calories, and most people treat I jogged like magic. Then he dunked on the muscle mass calorie myth. More muscle isn't a fat loss hack. Muscle is for health, look, and real-world function. Calorie burning isn't the main superpower. His, I wish it was, I'd be cheeseburger right now line was perfect. Supplements next. He basically says no for losing weight and gaining muscle simultaneously. And he calls creatine loading a corporate scam to sell more creatine. Creatine itself, though, works, 5G monohydrate, cognitive benefits, healthy stuff. He also said supplements are overrated, and the top rocks are sleep, stress, lifting, and activity. Which is where the whole episode circles back, systems over obsession. Then the conversation goes to steroids, and I was not ready for the bluntness. He basically says steroids are great for muscle if you're okay with risks and downsides. If you're smart, take blood pressure drugs, he said, like that's a cheat code. The psychological side effects part was honestly the scariest. Anxiety, aggression, even fluid intelligence. He described honor culture thoughts and revenge fantasies, just uncontrolled rage loops. The way he said he fantasized about hurting someone and then hated the thoughts. Wild honesty. Then he ties it to testosterone-like molecules affecting brain behavior patterns. But he also said he started steroids for credibility and being taken seriously in that era. So it's not just body goals, it's social meaning, dominance, and being respected. And then we get the deepest turn, his bullying story shaping his relationship with power. Being cornered at a young age changed his confidence for years, he said. He talked about fantasizing violence back then later how he'd never do that now. That leads into his point about being driven versus dragged. Trauma compulsion you don't consent to. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here like, yeah, some of my ambition might be emotional debt. The library analogy about childhood books and adult evidence was so clean. You counter old narratives only by stacking new evidence over and over. And then the progress evidence changes identity vibe connects directly to training too. Like you don't need certainty, you need feedback loops you can trust. That's why subjective progress matters. Felt movement, not just scale perfection. And at the end he goes, relate to your body better, soak in the sun, reclaim perception. Not as shallow vanity, but as reducing constant critique feedback. So yeah, final takeaway. Chase evidence, build systems, and treat your mind like part of training. And if your brain says not jacked, maybe check the comparator population first. All right, we're done with the dirt. Thanks for sticking with episode 1 and 2. Keep chasing evidence, not fantasies, and we'll see you in the next series. Welcome back. This is the final episode, and it's intense. We go from workout myths to body image reality checks, plus the dirtier topics. The big theme is, stop believing vibes, start building feedback loops you trust. Because apparently your brain is the worst measurement device ever invented. Like, the episode basically roasts the idea that calories on menus change everything. At the margins, he said. Translation, it's mostly not the villain people think. And then he pivots to eating disorders being more genetics and social cruelty than menu math. That eating order not eating disorder line, oof, but fair. The wild part is muscle dysmorphia being real, especially in men. He drops that men 15 to 32 with muscle dysmorphia are like the majority, 87% range. That number is so high my brain refuses to accept it immediately. But then he explains the comparator population thing, and suddenly it's intuitive. Your head runs a fake bodybuilding league table, and you're always in last place. And he says dysmorphia is usually underestimating, but sometimes it depends on the person. I feel like gym culture itself is basically training people to miscalibrate their self-image. One day you're not jacked, next day you're Superman at the grandma's house. The comparator environment example is genius, bank gym versus old people home. It means your reality is context-dependent, not objective. That connects to the mental health angle he made. Neurotic people stay doubting. Meanwhile, the more confident people become dangerously overconfident after lifting. But it's not just confidence. It's temperament and how your mind interprets the same gains. Honestly, it's annoying because people want a clean formula for self-esteem. Weight loss section was also basically, stop turning diets into religion. 8. Welcome back. This is the final episode and we go hard on muscle myths. We cover body image, eating disorder fears, weight loss religion, and steroids dark side. The menu calories cause eating disorders claim. Mike basically roasted that idea. Like eating disorders aren't NPCs spawned by labels at margins. He's saying genetics and social ridicule matter way more than your local pasta count. And then he pivots to muscle dysmorphia, mostly a male problem. 87% of men 15 to 32 is wild. Like the numbers are loud even if you hate math. The comparator population thing, that totally clicked for me. He made the bank gym versus grandma home comparison again, and it's unfairly accurate. If your brain is built to distrust reality, lifting doesn't magically fix that. It's annoying because people want one clean self-esteem equation. Reality is context, temperament, and the stories you already carry about yourself. So the dirty secret, your environment edits your objective perception. That's why he keeps saying it depends on who's doing the thing. And also why some guys get jacked and immediately become alpha delusional. But other guys get jacked and still feel like they're falling behind. Forever. That's temperament plus neuroticism, not just gym effort. Okay, weight loss myths. This part was basically therapy disguised as fitness content. You have to be perfect or you're sinning. That religious dichotomy is so common. One kebab and your brain declares you're excommunicated from dieting. Like your body is sitting there thinking, cool, carbs stored, tomorrow we continue. The binge to guilt to regain cycle is basically bad math plus emotional logic. Then he drops the second myth. Losing weight versus maintaining weight are not the same game. The doctor says yes forever line is brutal because that sounds like a prison sentence. He's basically saying, diet in chunks, then take maintenance time seriously. The rough cadence he gives, diet hard for like 3 months, then maintenance for 2. And maintenance is easier because diet fatigue and focus fatigue come down. Forever clean is untenable and your cravings aren't evil, they're biology. I liked how he reframed it. A little junk during maintenance is not moral failure. He even made it sound like the body gets a recovery receipt when you eat normally. Then the diet versus exercise ratio. He's comfortable with 80-20 as a heuristic. The constrained energy hypothesis, humans adjust when you try to outtrain a bad diet. Meaning planned exercise creates fatigue that quietly reduces all the other movement. Also the donut calories versus running calories analogy, instant mental slap. Like, if effort is measured in miles, exercise becomes a tiny lever against weekly calorie deficits. He basically says you'll feel hungrier sometimes, but not dependably in most people. And psychologically, the I deserve it trap is the bigger culprit than hunger hormones. The math check was also savage. 600 extra calories per week is not life-changing instantly. But the diet change can be hundreds of calories per day, so results actually show up. Then cardio versus strength for long-term weight loss. He's not selling cardio as the hero. And muscle isn't some magic calorie furnace either, just a little metabolic bump at best. He's like, muscle is for health, looks, capability. Weight loss is a side quest. I wish muscle was the greatest calorie sink. I'd be cheeseburger right now. Then supplements. He's extremely unimpressed with the supplement industry's obsession. No fat loss and muscle gain combo exists over the counter for normal people. Creatine gets a rare pass. 5 grams daily, monohydrate, reliable. And he calls creatine loading a waste, corporate scam energy. Loading just front loads the same product you'll take anyway for months. The core message stays consistent. Sleep, stress management, lifting, and daily activity. Then Whoop Sober October shows up and we go from energy tracking to steroids. The steroid talk is the most uncomfortable section because he's blunt about both speed and cost. Steroids are great was obviously a setup for a long list of downsides. He covers cosmetic stuff first, body hair, pimples, balding risk. The nose hairline, though, personal, specific, and yet somehow hilarious. Then the real stuff, increased cardiovascular disease risk and long-term systemic issues. If you're dumb, kidney failure later is not a marketing tagline. And if you're a teenager, growth plates are basically a permanent sacrifice. It's like he's saying, the trade-off is bigger than people imagine and smarter people regret less. Libido effects are inconsistent. Some people get hunger, some get erectile dysfunction issues. Also, he very clearly separates balls shrink anecdotes from willy-size changes claims. He's emphasizing fertility drops are realish, but not a guaranteed loss of fathering ability. The psychological side is where he goes nuclear, anxiety, aggression, even reduced fluid intelligence. The honor culture mechanism explanation was scary because it felt believable. He's also introspective enough to say he never screams, but thoughts get darker at higher doses. That unspeakable fantasies confession is the whole point. This is why results aren't the whole story. Then the philosophical question, what's the point? And he answers with context and life choice. He steps back from competitive bodybuilding to preserve brain and fluid civility. The reason he started is also human. Being enormous felt like destiny, like being the Hulk. He talks about backward justifications like it started with a t-shirt in 3rd grade is nonsense. I love that he calls retrospective narratives grotesquely flawed. But then he gets deep about bullying and dominance hierarchies, the subconscious submission feeling. The wrestling incident story shifted the whole room like this is trauma shaping behavior. And it explains why aggression fantasies can feel intrusive, not chosen. That's the theme tying it together. Fitness isn't separate from psychology. Then he links it to self-worth and achievement, being dragged toward success to feel enough. Honestly, drive versus dragged is the best phrase in the whole episode for me. And the library analogy, childhood books become the default self-story. Adult evidence replaces them. You don't rewrite this past, you stack new proof until the old story gets removed. Also, the gratitude discussions, turns out progress needs to be consciously felt. Subjective progress keeps you moving, like the British cycling team analogy. And Harvard Business Review diaries? People point to days with that "I'm going somewhere" feeling. Before we wrap, I want the listener to hear this. Fitness advice without mental realism fails. Because your mind will absolutely interpret the same gains differently depending on your wiring. If you take one thing, maintain like a person, train like a person, and relate to your body better. All right, that's our final episode. Thank you for hanging with us through the whole series. We'll see you on whatever you chase next. Now go get the win you've been minimizing. Welcome back, honestly. This is the final episode, so I'm hyped. We dug into muscle dysmorphia, weight loss myths, and the real trade-offs of steroids. The "you need 10 hours" crowd is hilarious because the psychology is the villain. Like people want calories to be the whole story, but it's not. The idea that menu labels instantly cause eating disorders? Come on. That's not how deviance risk works. It's mostly genetics plus social environment. And even then, anorexia is not a "someone saw a number" problem. It's like the system is already primed, labels just poke it at the margins. Which means you can't fix body image chaos by printing more numbers. Then muscle dysmorphia, bro, that was the mic drop. The way he described being not jacked while you're objectively jacked is scary accurate. It's the whole "I'm bottom 25% brain, even when you're probably top 2%. I love that he called the comparator population make-believe. And dysmorphia is usually underestimation, right? Your mirror lies to you emotionally. But sometimes gym culture over or underreads depends on the person's baseline. The old people home versus Gold's Gym example was insane and also real. If your circle is mostly not physique obsessed, you'll feel like Superman. But if you live in a university gym full of monsters, your brain can get neurotic. So environment is basically a lens, and your mental health is the eyes. That ties back to his point. Genetics is huge, but your learned comparator matters. And people act like body image is just confidence, like it's a switch. It's more like your nervous system decides what's safe, then interprets your gains. He basically said neurotic people can get jacked and still feel underpowered. Like, this might end tomorrow, even while the body is objectively changing. And the opposite guy gets 1 week into lifting and he's like, turn pro. That's not just confidence, that's likely a different psychological wiring. So when people ask, why don't I feel better when I train, the answer is mental realism. Which is why the weight loss myths were so ruthless. The perfect or failure diet religion, one kebab and you're exiled. That's literally dichotomizing food like it's morality calculus. But physiologically, the body is like, cool, carbs, glycogen, recover, thanks. The real damage is psychological. You treat one slip as identity death. Then the second myth. People think losing and maintaining are the same diet. No, maintenance needs different scheduling because diet fatigue is a thing. That whole diet hard for 3 months, maintain for 2 structure was such a relief. The internet wants forever dieting like it's a subscription to pain. And doctors sometimes just say forever, like tiramisu is a crime forever. Meanwhile, maintenance is basically mostly healthy, some junk, lower stress. Which is why the 80% diet heuristic actually makes sense. Not because exercise is useless, because humans cap activity and fatigue shifts the system. He mentioned the constrained energy hypothesis and the paradox. Try to double workouts and your body adjusts. You don't magically burn extra, you just move less and get exhausted. Also, the donut equals miles comparison, insanely effective mental math. Exercise can create a deficit, but it's often not the lever people think it is. And the hunger thing, he argued exercise doesn't reliably make you ravenous. Except the brain reward part, like I earned pizza after you feel virtuous. That's the real hunger hormone, entitlement. Then we got the cardio versus strength debate energy. The muscle burns more claim is true in theory, but tiny in practice. Weight is the bigger driver, and muscle's main job is health and function. He also nailed that cardio long-term isn't automatically magic for fat loss. People think they can outrun a bad diet like it's a video game map. But diet changes are easier to sustain and carve larger calorie chunks. Then the supplements section, no over-the-counter fat loss plus muscle gain unicorn energy. Creatine won't help weight loss, it helps performance and might bump scale via water. Creatine loading being a corporate scam was delightfully rude. And the core message stayed consistent. Sleep, stress management, training, activity, big rocks. Supplements are garnish, not the main meal. Then we shifted to steroids and the honesty went nuclear. Their great was immediately flipped into a list of downsides. Cosmetic issues, heart disease risk, cancer probability, kidney failure, psychological effects. Who? The emotional part about anxiety and aggression? That was the scary section. He described intrusive violent fantasies and honor culture-like thinking. That's not discipline, that's brain chemistry messing with your threat appraisal. Also, the libido variability depending on the steroid, people oversimplify that all the time. And the balls shrink internet myth got corrected. Size isn't the mechanism. The bigger point was the trade. Faster gains now, cost later, and mental side effects can be proximate. Then he connected it to why he stopped competing. He needed his brain more. That part resonated because performance isn't only physical. And then we got the origin story rabbit hole, bullies, shame, proving worth. He basically argued we're sometimes dragged by trauma more than driven by goals. That library of beliefs analogy was actually brilliant for why change requires new evidence. You can't just will yourself out of a hardback childhood belief. You go get first-hand evidence over and over until the shelf changes. That's why the subjective progress talk mattered so much at the end. Progress you consciously feel keeps you moving, cycling team, Harvard Diaries, all of it. That's the opposite of the doom scroll approach. You track wins, not enemies. And you let yourself bask in it, which is way harder than it sounds. Final thought. Fitness advice without mental realism is just bad engineering. Because your mind will interpret the same gains differently, depending on your wiring. If you take one thing, train like a person, maintain like a person, and relate to your body better. All right, that's our final episode. Thank you for hanging with us through the whole series. We'll see you on whatever you chase next. Now go get the win you've been minimizing. The wild thing is, he basically ruins the fitness is just effort fantasy. Like effort matters, but your psychology decides whether it sticks or snaps. And he's out here calling it bad engineering when advice ignores the brain. Wait, he also said menu calories labels barely change eating disorders? Which means the real villain is genetics plus social ridicule, not just numbers. That's something you bring into the table is such a brutal line. I'm still surprised people expected calorie labels to be the cure-all. But the marginal effect thing makes sense when the baseline risk already exists. The more interesting one was muscle dysmorphia, mostly men, 15 to 32, like 87%. That stat is insane and it's so underdiscussed compared to body image topics. So it's not wanting to be bigger, it's genuinely not perceiving yourself accurately. Like you're jacked, but your brain files you under not even close. And then the comparator population in your head is just made up. He described it as dissociation from objective reality, no flattering way to say it. He said dysmorphia is usually an underestimation, but sometimes it depends on the person. Okay, but in gym culture, don't people also overestimate progress on good days? He basically said, on bad days you think you're less jacked than you are. Then on good days it flips into, I'm jacked. Am I insane enough to go pro energy? That swing is the entire emotional roller coaster of lifting, honestly. And he connected body image to mental health in men, too, not just women. He argued a lot as genetic aggregation, then the environment decides how it expresses. The neurotic versus confident contrast was such a clean mental model. Neurotic people get jacked and still feel unsafe inside their own head, whereas the less neurotic ones just immediately become annoying with confidence. Just 1 week of lifting and you're alpha male. Get out of here. And the comparator context thing, Gold's Gym versus a bank, was hilarious and true. If your circle is full of neuroscientists who aren't jacked, your perception updates fast. If your circle is grandma and grandpa, suddenly you're Superman with back pain. That was such a good transition into weight loss myths, though. He hit the big one, needing to be perfect and then treating one meal like a sin. Fuck it, man, I'm done dieting after one kebab is the classic. The counter is, bodies recover, and you just reduce diet fatigue by feeding carbs sometimes. The body is apparently more forgiving than our identity-based dieting. And he basically hates the religious dichotomy, good or bad, sinner or saint. Then the nastier myth, losing weight and maintaining are the same process. He sounded pretty pissed about professionals saying yep when asked about maintenance. What do you mean, yep? That's not the conversation, is such a real spouse moment. The maintenance rhythm was, diet hard for about 3 months, then maintain for roughly 2. That way you lower diet fatigue and can restart without the spiral. Imagine being told forever and then being expected to give up tiramisu permanently. This also ties into the 80% diet claim. He's comfortable with 80-20 as a heuristic. He used the constrained energy hypothesis, basically saying humans can't just double activity. Like your body adapts and quietly cancels the extra movement elsewhere. Yeah, it's the planned workout replaces incidental life effect. The donut math was wild too. 200 calories burned sounds tiny until you convert it to time. How fast can you eat a donut? 5 seconds. That line should be tattooed. But he also challenged the idea cardio is the main long-term fat loss lever. Muscle mass isn't this giant calorie furnace people think it is. It's more like muscle is for health, function, and look. Diet still drives weight change. And he basically summarized it as controlled, nutritious diet plus moderate high daily activity. Then he laughed off the supplement hero narrative for weight loss. Creatine will not help with weight loss is a sentence nobody likes. He even said creatine can add like temporary water weight, about 2 kilos. So for fat loss, no over-the-counter miracle that also builds muscle. For muscle goals, though, creatine is the legit boring answer, 5 grams monohydrate. And he hates loading because it's basically a sales tactic disguised as optimization. He called supplements insanely overrated and put sleep, stress, lifting, and activity first. That top 10 ranking felt like him refusing to let people outsource discipline. Then we sprinted into the part that made everyone's face change, steroids. He said, steroids are great like a joke, then immediately listed the downsides like a checklist. Heart disease risk, cancer probability, kidney failure, psychological side effects, everything gets touched. And the timeline was fast visually, fast psychologically, even within 30 minutes for him. But then the libido and fertility details were also messy and individualized. He even clarified that steroids aren't shown to change penis size, despite internet folklore. Yet fertility can drop a lot, and it depends on the steroid and ancillary drugs. The psychological stuff was the most uncomfortable part. Anxiety, aggression, even honor culture thoughts. Like fantasizing about hurting someone, then realizing you don't even want those thoughts. That's terrifying because it's not just physical risk, it's brain state risk. Still, he gave a human reason too, feeling enormous, Hulk movie energy, wanting to be that. He basically explained the emotional craving for power, not just the aesthetic. But the why you breakdown turned into the deepest psychology pivot, bullying, shame, dragged versus drive. He described being submissive in a dominance hierarchy automatically without consent. And then the story of Darren, wrestling at 10, braces, blood, and confidence draining for years. The fact that he's still angry at his own younger brain for those fantasies is revealing. That led into his library analogy, childhood books, then adult evidence replacing old stories. I love the point that you change by adding new books through first-hand evidence, not wishful thinking. It's basically you can't argue yourself out of wiring without repulsion by reality. And then the gratitude discussion, letting progress count so you keep moving. The Harvard Business Review bit about subjective progress days hit me hard. Because it's not just happiness, it's motivation. Like, I feel like I'm going somewhere. So the dirty truth is, muscle hours won't matter if your mind keeps redefining reality as failure. And the clean truth is, train like a person, maintain like a person, relate to your body better. All right, this is the final one of the series. Thank you for riding the chaos with us. We'll see you on whatever you chase next. Now go get the win you've been minimizing.